hate doing this, Al.
Thank you for doing it, though. Okay. Welcome to 1,000 Ways to be a Champion for Children, past, present, and future. My guest today is the amazing Michael Marcotte. Michael, I miss your smiling face when I walk into the Sandman and walk into the Italian table and I see your smiling face. I haven't done that for a while. I got to say I miss that.
Yeah, we're missing that. We're missing that too, for sure. It's been a definitely very high exercise and resilience, for sure.
That is a fact, man. And self-care, never been more important. Man, that, right? Whew.
Yeah, I got two strategies, wine and running.
Nice. And those are working for you. So
they balance.
Nice. Excellent. So Mike, the term adverse childhood experiences, you are the first person who introduced me to that. I'm going to say 4 years ago. Is that about right?
I think that's about right, Al. And I think it was something that I kind of stumbled on in my journey as I was kind of going through and trying to figure out, what is this pandemic of anxiety and human nature that we have in our world, in this complicated world that's full of social media. So I think I stumbled on it, when I was actually looking at a project for Rotary, and started reading about it, and then it just kind of snowballed from there. And it's always amazing when you kind of go down a rabbit hole. You tend to find people who are like-minded, or find people who actually have the experience. Like the universe really does provide, in my estimation. And so all of a sudden I started meeting all these people who are involved with ACEs, or who had done work with ACEs, or I started to hear the term in a much more frequent way. And it's been a very powerful motivator for me in terms of my social responsibility.
And the impact is so significant and pervasive, right? Like, I mean, you don't kind of put it together, but if you think about it afterwards, like, if you thought about little Billy, who didn't sleep at all last night because he heard fists connecting and he heard yelling and he heard whatever sleep, and he gets up in the morning and there's really nobody to help him get things together. So he like stumbles and puts some clothes on. He's got two different shoes on. He hasn't combed his hair and he's got drool that's dried on his face, but he makes it to school.
Al, you're breaking up, buddy.
No, right? I mean, the reality is that what's that, Mike?
I'm losing you in the feed here. I'm not sure what that's all about. I'm losing a bit of the information. I think I got the context of what you're asking or what you were saying.
Okay.
If we continue to have problems, I might have to try and relocate and plug in, but let's kind of see is there any drag on your side with me, or?
You know what? I had where I kind of flashed off and then flashed on again, kind of a thing.
Yeah,
but
it happened a couple times. Anyway, So far so good. If we have a problem, I'll have to take a second, try and relocate. But yeah, I mean, I think the thing, that I wanted to say about ACEs, and the part that's really powerful in my mind about what I learned, was that children who experience ACEs, at a certain point, if they're experiencing ACEs in a fairly profound way, it actually changes the way their brain develops. And so they actually develop their brain more with their primordial brain, which is fight, fight, or freeze. And, so when I listen to people talk, and they talk about, well, just get over it, that's a real problem for me now.
Sure.
Because I don't know how you get over something when you actually your actual development as a human hasn't happened how it's supposed to. You actually develop with a different part of your brain. So this idea of just getting over it, it's a really, in my mind, it's a statement that people say when they don't understand anything about ACEs, when they don't understand about anything about adverse childhood experiences, or certainly not in a more profound way. And the power of the ACEs model, I guess I'll say, is that not only does it change how a child's brain development changes, but it changes the life expectancy of that human. So not just the quality of their life, and where that trajectory takes them, but it actually shortens our lives. And there's lots of stats about it. I'd really encourage anybody who hasn't heard that term before. It's a fairly easy Google search, and you can find out some pretty basic information in a pretty quick way. And I don't think that everybody needs to be an expert on ACEs. I'm certainly not. I read enough to know what I need to do and how I need to position myself. But I really think that with a little bit of knowledge, I talk lots about unconscious incompetence, right? And if you're making a statement like they should just get over it, well, I think you're unconsciously incompetent to the reality of what adverse childhood experiences does to an individual's development. And I think once you read a little bit about that, then you become consciously incompetent, and hopefully with practice you become consciously competent, and you stop saying stuff like that because you've been saying it for far too long already. So I really think that that's an important part, and I think most people. I think most people are generally good people, So again, I think that little bit of knowledge really kind of goes a long way to saying, well, hey, maybe there's a little more to this than just get over it. Maybe there's some actual support that's needed to get over it. And I think that's where you and I kind of look at it and go, hey, well, you and I and many others look at it and go, hey, well, what can we do? How do we try and be a champion, and how do we try and share that knowledge? And certainly when I presented it, that idea to you, I think I presented it to a bunch of other people as well. And I'm not sure everybody's kind of taken the ball and run with it like you have, right? And so, but hopefully they've all stopped saying they should just get over it.
Yeah.
First of all, we don't know who they are.
Yeah. And you know what? We are they. In most cases, it's like so prevalent. When on a personal type thing, when I started researching this, like when I started researching it further, basically everybody has trauma in their life. Maybe it's small t trauma, but everybody has trauma in their lives. And if you think about when you're a little person, get frozen with the emotion or the thought, the perception that you're not good enough and you're not worthy and you're not lovable, you're none of those things, and you keep that with you into adulthood, that changes how you interact with people. That changes how you regard yourself. That changes so many things. It changes your ability to learn. When just for our viewers' sake, I'm just going to recap there when you're talking about the science and the brain development. Dr. Bruce Perry, he's like the rock star for intervention in young people's lives who have been severely damaged, and then knowing the steps to get them whole again, kind of a thing. And basically he says there's the brainstem, there's the diencephalon, the limbic, and then the neocortex. And a lot of the what should have grown into connections with the neocortex doesn't happen depending on the age of the child when they experience the trauma. And then that, as Mike said, the brain isn't wired, isn't connected the way it needs to be. A lot of his therapy involves music and movement, which I think is very telling, that that's something that's very valuable in terms of restoring whole functioning. So, but Bruce Perry, the book, probably the best book you will ever read is The Boy Who Was Raised as a Dog. Have you read it, Mike?
I haven't read it, but I know a bit about it for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
It is an amazing book of horrible things going on with kids, but an amazing book of hope, because these kids, in all cases except one, have recoveries that are just phenomenal. Like they're going to have normal lives. So yeah,
that's super interesting, Alan. And I mean, if I'm being totally frank with you, I don't want to read that book. I mean, I have trouble. It breaks my heart just thinking about it. But I don't have to read that book to know that I need to help, right? I don't have to, dig that deep and wound myself to know that, severe neglect and sexual abuse and physical abuse and ACEs occur, right? So
right. Yep.
we all know that. Everybody knows that, right?
Yes.
So therefore, everybody can do something about it. But and I think that's always the way that I think about championing for anything, is that you can get out your checkbook, You can, and you know, you can donate $5. You can donate 5 million. I mean, there's pretty vast range there. You can get out your checkbook, or you can donate your time if you don't have even the $5 to donate, or you can do both if you have the capacity to do both. And you know, I think the idea of championing for anything is to say, hey, there's a way for you to be involved here. It's not 0 or 10. There's a whole bunch of numbers between 0 and 10. You can be a 2.2, or you can be a 0.2, or you can be a 9.9 like yourself, or maybe 998. You know, so there's a big spectrum. But
Hey,
the point
speaking
is
of
jump on.
Mike, speaking of when you're talking about, you know, if you have some dollars, you wanted to get your check out that you can support something, tell us about a project locally that's going to make a big difference in little people's lives. Tell us
Yeah,
about it.
I'd love to do this, and I'll give you a little bit of a backstory. So, you know, I mean, I try and donate as much time and as much as I can to a variety of charities, and in particular youth charities and children's charities, because I feel like the upstream approach is where you need to invest. And before Christmas, you know, and I find this happens to me a lot. Like prior to Christmas, we were sitting on some cash that we had saved up. So I had started a fund at the restaurant, an opportunity for staff to donate each paycheck off of their paycheck, and then we would match the funds. And you know, we had 16 or 20 people who did that, and it actually built into being a fairly nice little pot of cash. And prior to Christmas, I was like, oh man, I got to do something. And I'm thinking, what's out there, and what's, you know, where do I want to put this stuff? You know, obviously the food bank's brilliant. We've donated quite a bit of money to the food bank and food to the food bank. Um, I was thinking about buying some computers, because we know that COVID has, you know, put the underprivileged once again in a more marginalized place, because you need technology to go to school. And if you got 3 kids and an iPhone, it doesn't work great. So I thought about that and tried to look at that practically and go, you know, how far will this go? How will that work? Where can we make the biggest impact? And I mean, I each day as it gets closer to Christmas, I'm like, you know, I just can't make a decision. And anyway, so I ended up failing and not making a decision. And when I came back from Christmas, I saw Christine Cassie from the Sexual Assault Center had started a new program, or they're starting a new program called the Child Advocacy program. And it's a provincial program. I think there'll be eight units in Alberta. And you know, I find it fairly shocking to, you know, even at this age with what I know, to find out that there's just areas that just aren't being managed well. You know, like, I mean, you think when it comes to, you know, the type of abuse that we're talking about for these children, that we'd have plenty of resources and plenty of opportunities for it to happen, but it's just not the case. And so anyway, so we looked at that, and I talked it over with members of my team, and everybody was very much on board with that. So we ended up sponsoring the kitchen for the Child Advocacy Center, which there's a bunch of different programs. Al, maybe you'll post or put something up for it after. I don't know how much you want me to belabor it, but so we did the kitchen. We thought that would make sense, and we know that we can not only donate today, and so we sponsored the building of the kitchen and the equipment that will go in the kitchen. And but moving forward, we'll be able to provide cookies or juice boxes or coffee, or, you know, drop some cannolis off once in a while. So really felt like it's kind of, you know, great synergy. It ties in with my food and beverage operation from catering and Italian table. You know, the staff and the chefs and the culinary team and the servers, everybody's passionate about hospitality, right? So, you know, it's pretty cool to think that we can actually bring a little bit of hospitality to, you know, to a place that is, there's not a lot of happiness there, right? And that's exactly what you're trying to bring, is a little bit of happiness and some support and some comforts that maybe aren't available to you all the time, right? So, yeah, so the Child Advocacy Center, if you go onto LinkedIn and look up Chinook Sexual Assault Center, you'll find lots of information there. I'm confident they probably have a Facebook page as well. Certainly, people could reach out to you or to me, and it would be great. So
Yeah. So just to kind of for the viewers' sake, there's child advocacy centers throughout many centers throughout Alberta. You think 8, I think 6, I thought. But anyways, what there's in other centers, not here. And our need here is the biggest that's in the province. Our rate of domestic intimate partner violence highest in all of Canada. Our rate for child poverty, we're highest in Alberta. Our rate of child abuse and child sexual abuse is like 2.5 times the national average in our community, right? In our area. So a child advocacy center, a very, very important asset everywhere, a very important asset we need here, maybe more than any other place in
yeah,
Alberta.
yeah, and it's just again, it's a little shocking, and obviously, you know, you and I have talked in depth about some of the reasons behind that. We don't have to get into the gory details of that because I'm not wanting to point out any individual groups of individuals. I'm sure it's fairly widespread, but you know, I think it's safe to say that when you talk about concentrated poverty and you talk about the hardship that comes with concentrated poverty, that you know, where you have higher incidence of that poverty, you're going to have higher incidence of all of the things we just said, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know, so we need to address that. But the other thing too about, and I'll just say a little bit about this, but so the facility to be built is about $285,000. Here's what they're looking for. So I said I sponsored the kitchen. They need a forensic room. They need a CCTV testifying room, a therapeutic playroom, a welcoming lobby, a family meeting room, a team office, and a file room. And each one of those carries a price tag. So you know, if you're watching this and you know, want to make a big difference, you could cut a big check, but you could also cut a small check, and a lot of small checks would fund these rooms as well. So the point of the Child Advocacy Center is that you know these children have to testify, and you know if you're going to stop a predator or an individual, you need a facility to help make that happen, and that's what. So this is about. It's about stopping and dealing with the issue at the source, and then it's about providing the support and the services so that you know children who have experienced ACEs have an opportunity to you know go on and live a fulfilling life and work their way out of this trauma, right? So I think it's an incredible opportunity for all of Southern Alberta and certainly for this community and every other community in our region to really make a huge difference in terms of the lives of you know, what would be, in my estimation, the most marginalized um, people on our planet, right? Well,
Yeah.
maybe not. Yeah, you got what I'm saying.
I get what you're saying. And when you're talking about you know, the physical changes to a brain from a child who's been suffered abuse, and tell us a little bit about intergenerational trauma, Mike.
Yeah, sure. You know, again, I mean, I think Christine had asked me to write a little piece for a press release. You know, and again, I don't love being public about this stuff, obviously, but again, the best way to get other people on board is to talk about what you're doing and why you're doing it, why you think it's important. But you know, when I wrote it for today, I said, unfortunately, you know, the beneficiaries of intergenerational trauma and mental health and issues and concentrated poverty and beneficiaries of all of those things are children. You know, and again, I mean, we you know, I assume anybody who's tuned in or has heard of you know murdering and missing Indigenous women and girls and has heard about the legacy of the Canada's residential schools. And you know, again, if you're you know it's not great reading and it's not a part of history we want to recognize, but again it comes back to this idea of just getting over something that doesn't work that way, you know, like you know you can't just say that. I mean, one stat that I saw, and this was put out by the CBC, and it said the odds of dying for children in the Indian residential school system was 1 in 25, and the odds of dying in World War II was 1 in 26. So that's a pretty staggering. I didn't make that up. I mean, you can go
No,
you can go to CBC News and find that information. I mean, that's the real deal, right? So,
the first
again,
time, I'm sorry to interrupt. I was just going to say the first time somebody told me about residential schools, I said, no, you don't understand that. That's not true. That can't be true. And then, but it shocked me when I kind of understood the enormity of it, right? From what, 1875 until 1996 or something like that, where we
yeah,
ran schools, we would go, guys who look like me would go into a reserve, go to people's homes and take the kids out of the home and say, you can't wear this clothes, you can't speak that language, you can't, you can't do any of these things. You need to become part of us. You have to give up what you had before. And they would hit them and beat them and abuse them in every which way to try and beat the culture out of them.
there's some
So,
bad stuff going on. 150,000 children in
yeah,
that time frame. So, again, not to belabor that, and again, I mean, that's just part of what happened, and now it's about what's gonna happen and where are we taking this thing. And again, I think that when you talk about concentrated poverty in any group of individuals, it's very difficult to rise above concentrated poverty. You just don't have the opportunities that are available to people who don't have that. So
the opportunities. And what's the other thing? You shared this with me a week ago. What's the other thing that
what did
happened?
I say? What did I say?
The lobster, man. The lobster
Oh
story.
yeah, crabs in a bucket.
Crabs in a bucket, not lobster.
Crabs in a
Crabs in a
bucket.
bucket. And how's that work? How's that work?
Yeah, I mean, the analogy came from this idea of concentrated poverty, and that when you're living in an environment like that, you're trying to get out of there. You're trying to get out of that circumstance, and unfortunately, the people who are in that with you don't want you to do that. They want you to stay in that bucket because they love you and they want you to be a part of that community, right? So it's a very challenging circumstance. And again, when you think about what's going on with this pandemic right now, and I heard the chief economist for ATB did a seminar last week, and he talked about a K recovery. I'm kind of moving into economics here a little bit, but talked about a K recovery. And what a K recovery looks like is, this side of the K is people who can work from home and who have technology and have degrees and have jobs that can be done mobile, and they will recover very quickly. They have a high level of pay. And then the bottom half of the K is, the people who don't have that kind of education and don't have the ability to work at home, and they will recover very, very slowly. So, I've heard somebody call it the shadow pandemic, and it was probably Christine Cassie that said that to me, that the shadow pandemic, unfortunately, is that the marginalized become more marginalized, and again, often that results in some of the things we're talking about today. And that's certainly not to suggest that I'm saying that poor people beat their kids. I'm not saying that in any way. So if anybody's grabbed that assertion, that's not the right one. But again, it's when you come from tough circumstance, often there's tough things that go along with that. And
Yeah.
so, yeah. So, we've got a big hill to climb, post pandemic, post benefits, post all that stuff. And, again, it just reinforces the idea that, we need this child advocacy center here in Southern Alberta. We need to all take a responsibility. You've all heard takes a village to raise a child, right? So we need people to get engaged and to get involved. And as you kind of said earlier too, Al, like, we've all got some level of trauma in our lives. Obviously, those are very vastly. The thing that really, for people who have, or children who have some trauma, who maybe just come from a tough circumstance, just having that friend, having that buddy, having oxytocin opportunities, having love, and having role models that show you that you can overcome. You are not your circumstance. You can overcome your circumstance, but you probably can't do it alone. You probably need support to do it.
Besides your mother and father, who was your support when you little Mike? Who was your support for little Mike?
Yeah, well, I come from a family of 9 children, and then my mother and father, and we came some pretty tough circumstances. We definitely know lots about concentrated poverty as a family. So, we relied on each other for sure. Um, and you grow up, and then you got to figure out how to change your situation, right? So I had lots of great mentors along the way. Probably most of them after I left home and started to get out into the world and explore. And I'm a Red Seal chef by trade. Which is a trade school has 4,500 hours worth of working experience, and I'm one out of the 9 children in my family to do any post secondary. And again, I mean, just the opportunity to have a little bit of education can go an awful long way in terms of you defining where you're going. But we don't all have that privilege either, right? So
No, for sure. But even when we do, there's the whole crabs in the bucket syndrome, right? That we talked about. I know from my personal experience, when I look back, when I moved, I moved to another town when I was a young man, 19, I think. And that for me was a whole, like I could change. Like I wasn't constrained by what my friends at home thought, because I could be kind of a better version of myself, right? I wasn't going to go every afternoon and drink beer from when my shift ended until I went home, and those kind of things. That was what my peers did, right? So yeah.
yeah, I've recently, I think I shared. Well, I know I shared this podcast with you as well. It's called Between Two Worlds, and read a book by the author of that podcast as well. And yeah, it's one of the things that's one of the major points of the book is that when strivers have to leave their communities to advance their position in life, they have to make a pretty big sacrifice in terms of their family, but on top of that, they leave a big hole in their community. They take out that mentorship, and they leave behind that, hey, that guy was able to do that, so I can too, or that girl was able to rise above her circumstance, so I can too. So, again, I think it's imperative that we as a society start to recognize that we need to make sure that there's opportunity, regardless of your socioeconomic status or where you live, or what your culture is, or anything else, right? We just need to provide opportunities, in areas where there's concentrated poverty, and provide an opportunity for people to help their community, right? Help themselves, and then help their community. And again, I think there's tons of examples of that. Uh, we see tons of examples. We hear of tons of examples of that, but often those individuals are no longer in their community. And I mean, I probably a good example of that. So I left my community a long time ago, and Lethbridge has been my community since 1996. And I may not be able to help the community that I came from, but I sure can do everything I can to try and help this community that I call home now. And again, that's, I think, what we're supposed to do.
Yeah, no, makes sense to me. Hey, at the college, with your role at the college, your leadership role at the college, we were chatting that there's some students here kind of stressed, eh?
Oh yeah, yeah. I think there's yeah. I think the pandemic's pretty universal. Yeah, I don't know. I guess there's the odd super introvert that's probably loving life because they can work at home, and that ain't you or I. That's for darn sure. So yeah, I'm sure there are. Yeah, there's so many challenges that go along with this, and I don't know. I mean, I think it's interesting, and we're just talking from the cuff here. So again, I try not to be too guarded in that, but it's interesting. It's kind of given everybody a little taste of what it's like to be restricted or to be marginalized. Whether that's socially or um, it's it's kind of, don't get me wrong. I'm not suggesting I'm happy it's happening or whatever, but I'm gonna try and make lemonade for sure. Um, yeah, I think there's some very very these are, I think times were very challenging before the pandemic, and I think that the pandemic has shone a light on many different areas of disparity that we have. For example, as I said earlier, you got three kids and one iPhone and maybe one laptop, but how do you get three kids through school with one iPad? Is one of them working the night shift or what?
Yeah, yeah. Let me tell you a secret, Mike. I understand how bad this is for some people. For me, this has been fantastic. Like, I've got all kinds of more time on my hands than I've ever had before in my life. My income is fine. It's dropped a little bit, but doesn't matter because my expenses have dropped more. And my health is good. My health is actually the best it's ever been because I'm exercising more. I'm meditating more. I'm singing an hour a day. Man, my mental health is the best it's ever been. It's like, yeehaw, this is great. So I feel in a very privileged place that I got to up my game in the community service department. I got to get a little bit more back because I'm being very blessed in this environment. So,
Yeah,
and I realize if you're a little person with an abuser and your abuser no longer leaves the house anymore because he doesn't have a job, and you
that's
no longer leave the house anymore because you don't go to school, that's a really sad situation,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
But for some of us, this is like it's a life-changing thing that I would have never done on my own, but I'm really enjoying every day. It's awesome.
yeah. Well, hopefully there's a lot of people like you who are using some of their spare time to try and give back more. I mean, we've had lots of time to internalize our own system and our own culture and share more with the team about what it is that we need to do for our community and how we're going to do it. And this Child Advocacy Center is just a brilliant fit for us. And I'll be talking about this lots till it gets done, and certainly sharing it with all my friends and anybody who I feel like I have some influence over. And yeah, hopefully we can get this thing built and help out.
Well, Mike, you're not talking until it gets done. You're gonna keep with me talking about this issue and encouraging change and help it out, and every once in a while getting our checkbook out, and we're gonna make this difference for the next 20 years. You and me, buddy.
Yeah, I'm not. Hopefully, I'm not going anywhere. And again, I mean, it's been a big part of my life for many many years, and will continue to be a big part of my life. And whether that's facilitating my role at the college as the board chair, or trying to help Christine with the Child Advocacy Center, or trying to poke different clubs to help support, and all those things. Yeah, I think there's lots of work to be done, and continue to do it. And hopefully we can, well, not hopefully, there's no question, whatever you're doing makes a difference. So the goal is never to try and measure that. The goal is just to try and know you're putting in the effort. So that's my perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. And in terms of even the awareness part, like having these conversations, I think is an important part of the awareness part, right? Just having these conversations and having, as you addressed, it's not just a thing that you get over, right? There's a little more complicated than how
Yeah,
this works, right? So yeah.
I saw a cool. Oh, actually, I don't have it here. Too bad. I saw a cool post on LinkedIn today, and it talked about. I think it said something like it was the power pack on how to get through the COVID, right?
Hmm.
And it talked about oxytocin, and talked about all the different dopamine and all these things, and gave some examples. Go for a run, pet a dog, blah blah blah, right? So I thought that was really really a cool idea. And again, when we're talking about ACEs, and we're talking about making a difference in the lives of children, that's really what we're talking about, is providing oxytocin opportunities and providing love and support and mentorship and that kind of stuff. And there's lots of great groups in town doing it. Youth One has done a tremendous job of creating a space for kids who come from concentrated poverty in our community. And I can't tell you, I've met their team a bunch of times, and have been able to be involved in some of their fundraising and doing that sort of thing. And they're providing a safe place for kids to go where they can create and establish relationships with adults that are positive. And that is a huge that'll make a huge difference in the lives of these children. And Boys and Girls Club, and Big Brothers and Big Sisters, those are all great examples of support systems that are there to try and give kids an opportunity to see something different, and to be exposed to something different, and to enjoy a relationship that they don't maybe have the opportunity to have in their own lives for whatever reason, right? So
Right. Yeah.
again, I think there's just so many ways that we can do it. And I know the Child Advocacy Center is also looking for volunteers and looking for those kinds of things. So if I was a messaging guy, which I guess I am right now, my message would be, like, there's lots of ways to help. And I said it once, I'll say it again. You can get your checkbook out, you can donate your time, or if you have the opportunity, you can do both. And, I don't know, like, you and I have probably talked about this before, but, the living is in the giving, right? It's the idea is that, you're going out there and you're trying to help somebody else, but really, that's what's filling you up. So
Sure. Yep.
if you're feeling like crap about yourself, go and volunteer. Go and volunteer. There's no better way to feel better about yourself.
Agreed. And you and I know there's like a biological proof of that, right?
Yes.
There's the mirror neurons that are happening in our brain, right? And when that happens, then where you're saying dopamine and oxytocin, those, like, your life affirming fluids, I'm going to call them, they just go throughout your body, and life is better and sweeter, and you can smell the air nicer, and food tastes better. And like, yeah, that's a good self-care thing, is giving to others. You get back a lot for
sure.
doing that. Yeah. I'm going to suggest more than what you give. Do you agree with that, Mike?
Oh yeah, 100%. I totally agree with that. Yeah, I mean, I don't. Again, I give up my time and my energy because it makes me feel like a good human. And I work every day to try and be happy, and what makes me happy is knowing that I'm trying to make a difference in my community, for sure. So, and again, I just think that for many people, social isolation is a really big problem with Facebook and the internet, and the amount of time people spend on screens. And I think if you're feeling that way, if you could find a charity or idea that you're passionate about, or that you've always thought you could make a difference at, whether that's shoveling your neighbor's walk or getting out and supporting the Child Advocacy Center, I just think do it. Just do it. Get out and do it.
Nice. Yeah, I'm with you 100%. So you had talked about, for you, some wine consumption and some running is kind of like helps to keep Mike at Mike's best. Yeah. So are there any other, do you meditate as well, Mike?
No, I don't meditate. I mean, I don't know. I have maybe a different definition of meditation. I mean, I think when I'm running, I'm saying, God, I hate running, but so that's probably not meditation. That probably doesn't work. I try and have some introspection. I'd be lying to you if I said that my business being closed for the second time, and kind of redefining ourselves, it sucks, and my income has been affected dramatically. I mean, I'm fortunately in a position where that won't marginalize me, but this I'm okay with not being okay, and I think that's kind of a really important part of being okay, is being okay with not being okay, right? So I can't wait till this is done. I can't wait till I can hang out with my friends. I can't wait till I can party with 300 people. Like, that's who I am, for sure. So this pandemic has sucked. But again, I think like any, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, and I think the pandemic's a pretty big teacher for many. So I hope the students are learning. We got to get something good out of this thing, right? Like we
Yes.
have to, when this thing's over, we have to have. I mean, I don't want the world to change, but I want the people who are in the world to change. And hopefully we can achieve that, and that recall will be there.
Right. Yeah. Cool. Hey,
So yeah,
you
just wine and running out.
wine and running. Wine and running work. I have my wife, my bride Corolla is she says I am naively optimistic. So she thinks I'm a little bit overboard on the optimism thing. And so I decided, hell, I'm just running with it. I'm going with it. I'm going to be all the way out audaciously positive is what I've decided I'm going to do. So because I think, why not? Like, even I think we should have fake news that you wish was true. You would, oh wow, that'd be amazing if you read that newsline. I think that's the kind of fake news we need right now.
I don't think that your optimism will be considered a character flaw. I think it's just perfect, right? So
Great.
I'm not quite as big of a cheerleader, but that's okay. That's okay. I'm happy to do the heavy lifting too. So
Excellent. Well, the only reason I bring it up is I think last Thursday, no, what today's Friday. I think yesterday I launched a podcast with Daniel Zappuoli. Do you know who Daniel Zappuoli is?
no, I don't think I do.
Oh, anyways,
he's a different guy than the guy that I listened to, the other doctor in Houston.
yes, yeah, not him. No, that's
Okay.
Dr. Greg
Okay.
Williams. No, and
Okay.
and I don't think Daniel's a doctor, but anyways, he is a preacher, spiritual leader, heads up some foundations and charities, and he's a very vocal advocate for like being the best you. Don't try and compare yourself to anybody else. Like, be the best you. Like, this is what the world needs: is your best, your true self. And so him and I, we started. Basically, we called it that we are the hope-ifiers. So our job is to do a little show that increases hope. So anyways, we did our first little thing on Thursday, kind of in the middle of my singing show. I started singing, and
Holy
then
cow, how many shows you got going here?
Mike, I got a singing show every day. After you and I are done, I'm going to sing for an hour. So I got a singing show I do every day, and the singing show I had yesterday, Daniel joined me, and then we had a conversation about the hope-ifiers, right?
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's, I think every Thursday at 4:00 is going to be the hope-ifiers. So yes.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So matter of fact, do you mind if I share with you our vision that we had, our dream that we had? Okay. So we are granted this special vision, this omnivision, that we can see every human being on the whole planet, all the 7.6 billion of them. And they're black and white and red and brown and yellow, and they're big and they're little, and they have different clothes, and they have different languages, and they have different beliefs in terms of who their God is. But they're all these people that we can see them all. And why it's important that they're all the human beings is because they are human beings. They always have been human beings. They will be human beings until we end this race, or hopefully we don't. But until that happens, everybody's human beings. But there has been times when they weren't regarded as people, right? 400 years ago or so, guys that look like me wrote stuff that said, black people aren't people. You can trade them. You can buy them. Right. And 150 years ago, guys who look like me wrote laws that said, oh, these brown people here, these First Nations people, they're not people. They're human beings, but they're certainly not people. And then maybe 100 years ago, white women were not regarded as people as well, could not vote, were kind of chattel owned by their husbands. But in this case, we're talking all the human beings, no distinctions. And in this picture of all these human beings, they are all healthy, 7.6 billion, and they're all healthy. They're getting enough food. They're getting enough water. They have shelter, everything. They are fine. They're living well. In their eyes, there's hope, and on their lips and in their hands, there's help. that they want to be of help for themselves and they want to be of help for others. And there happens to be 3 adults for every child. And those 3 adults are looking after that child, making sure that it has a good human experience. And so these are 3H humans, humans that are healthy, that are hopeful, and that are helping. How do you like that vision?
That's quite a vision. That is quite that's not quite the dystopian vision I have.
Well, I don't know how this could come to fruition, but I'm throwing it out there, and smarter people than me will say, "Oh shit, we can do that."
I'm probably not jumping board on that train, but you run with it for sure.
All right. So
I have a vision though, and I wouldn't call it a vision, but if I could have a vision, it would just be that, people who could help would help, and
yes.
and that would be a real good starting point in my mind, right? So
agreed.
Yeah. So not quite as grand as yours, but that's okay. That's okay.
Anyways, for our viewers, if any of you want to hear other wildly optimistic stories and dreams and wishes, things that you wish were true, Thursdays at 4, I think we're doing it. I think Daniel and I are doing it. So
yeah, if you want to do that, you got to call Al, not Mike. That's for sure.
So we know, Mike, though, that as we have opportunities to interact with young people in our lives, in our circle, that it would be beneficial for us and beneficial for them that we make that as meaningful as possible, that we are there connected with them for that, where we're reading a story or giving them a pat on the back or encouraging them or going down a toboggan hill with them, whatever it is we're doing, that we're engaged with them. I think it'd be real important and life affirming for those kids. Would you agree?
Yeah, I agree for sure. And I also would just add to that, everybody's in a leadership role, right? So it doesn't matter whether you're, putting groceries on the shelf or you're running a Fortune 500 company, like, everybody's a role model, and little people are always watching, like they're always watching, and, modeling is the greatest gift you can give to your kids and your neighbors' kids and kids you interact with, right? Is modeling good behavior and modeling being a good person and modeling equality and modeling, I think that gets lost on a lot of people. They maybe just don't recognize that, that those children that are around them are watching them like little hawks, like my little 1-year-old granddaughter watches my 3-year-old grandson like a hawk. I mean, she's just, if he smiles, she smiles. If he yells, she yells. Like, just every single thing he does, she is a mirror of him, right? Mm-hmm. And, and again, that is the same for adults, right? As kids are watching, children are watching, they're modeling. When a kid's an asshole, it's probably because they're modeling an asshole. Sorry, I don't know if I could say that on your program, but I just did. So I guess you probably don't have the technology to bleep it out. So, I mean, people learn behavior from other people. So, I think, an act of kindness tends to inure another act of kindness. So, to speak to what you just said, right? So,
yeah.
Be better, people.
Yes.
Sorry, that sounded judgy.
No, that's okay. Like, regard it this: be the best that you can be. Be there for the people that you want to make a difference in their lives, right? So
yeah, for sure. And again, I mean, that doesn't. I make plenty of mistakes in that too, and I was trying to figure out where they were.
When you're talking about mistakes, you want to hear a mistake. My goodness. My wife has Corolla, lovely woman. She's had a lot of trauma in her life, right? And for decades, she was telling me that she had this trauma and she was expecting that I should help her with that trauma. And for decades, I said, hey, I didn't cause this, not my fault. You figure this shit out. Like, you're on your own, right? And that was very selfish, very self-centered. I didn't want to experience her trauma. I didn't want to engage with that in any way. But now it's just kind of realized, going through all of the research I've done, that, man, like, this is real important for people to have a voice, to express that, to come to terms somehow with that. And she is a genius at finding resources. Oh my goodness. She finds all kinds of self-help type, blah, blah, blah things. And she tells me about them. And most of them, a lot of times I wouldn't try them in the past. Now I try every one. Oh, sure. Okay. This is what you do. Hell yeah. I'll give that a try. But last night we watched Michael A. Singer. Have you ever heard of this cat?
His name sounds familiar, but I couldn't.
Oh, he is pretty fascinating guy. And if you relate this to if adverse childhood experiences are where you get emotion that is frozen within you that prevents you from being your best self. Like, let's say that's what it is. And I think that's pretty close. Okay. Then his whole thing is about releasing it, that you need to release it. And then here's his steps as to how you release it. And it's just like, oh my goodness, it's quite amazing. The other thing, have you ever heard of EMDR?
Yes.
Yes. So that is a therapy for folks that have post-traumatic stress, right?
Yeah.
I do not have post-traumatic stress, but I went and had some EMDR therapy because I used it a different way, as a way to kind of maximize my effectiveness and look at things where there might have been stumbling blocks and change them into kind of stepping stones, right? Okay, let's figure this out and let's move forward from here and be the best version, kind of a thing. Anyways, it's a brain hack. It's magic, in my opinion. Yeah. It's pretty cool. But that's not the only way. There's 1,000 ways, but that's one way that I've experienced. I thought, okay, this is cool. This makes a lot of sense. So, yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Yes.
Cool. Yeah, I know people have done it, and I haven't personally, but yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting type of therapy for sure.
Yeah. We were watching what's he? I think can't remember his name. I was going to say Dr. Feelgood, but that's not his name.
That'd be a terrible name for a doctor.
Yeah, that's a whole different show. Anyways, this guy, I posted on Facebook today because yesterday he was saying if you have stuffiness, if you have like lung breathing problems, and you just kind of work this point right here, it's kind of some special reflexology point.
Right.
I think it worked. I think
you are trying everything, eh?
Everything, every damn thing I'm trying. Why not?
That's funny, Al. You're hilarious.
All right. So what else should we talk about, Mike? We're saying about the child.
I think I'm just about done. Like I've been talking. We've been talking for 52 minutes.
We have. Okay. So should we wrap this up?
Yeah, I'm good. I mean, again, I would just say, this. I would plug the Child Advocacy Center again for sure, and say that that's, something really that is really a massive opportunity to change. And Christine, I know I watched the thing you and Christine talked about the other day, Christine Cassie from the Sexual Assault Center, and she described it as this is an investment in our society that'll pay, 10, 15, 20 years from now, right? So, if you don't like what's going on in our community and many communities, this is the way to kind of step in front of this thing and get upstream and try and solve some of the societal problems that we'll see down the road from children who are being abused, right? So I'd say it's a very important concept in terms of, thinking about what the future looks like in your community and what you want it to look like in your community, right? So
definitely.
I'd plug that again. I would say, that there's, a huge opportunity for everybody out there to, you're 1,000 ways to champion for children. I think the idea is there's 1,000 ways, but you only need 2 or 3 of them to really make a difference. So maybe even only one. So
right.
The 1,000 ideas to say there's so many ways that you can contribute back and make a difference. So I love that, and again, I mean, in my personal life and in my business life, my hope is that, the work that I'm trying to do, or the things that I try and do, will, inspire the, 60 or 70 kids that work for me to hopefully get out and get really involved in their own community and their own ways. And, and to whatever capacity that they can. So, and hopefully that's what your show and your mission will do. We'll just go out and inspire some people to say, hey, what can I do to, it doesn't have to be over the top,
Nope.
and that's,
It
and
doesn't
that's,
have to
I
be.
think, many hands make light work. I mean, that's a saying I've always loved, right? Is, many hands make light work. So, yeah.
So I'm 100%. And, Christine, by the way, one thing we were talking about the other day is that the results we have today, the number of people in our community who are hurting and who are sick and who are addicted and who are getting beaten, all those kind of problems that exist, that's because of what we didn't do 20 years ago. Right. So now, I mean, we can't change that. We can start now and hopefully make life better today and reduce getting more kids traumatized, right?
Yeah,
So,
and I would say the other thing I think she said is, she's been doing this for 40 years, and 40 years they didn't have the science that they have today.
right.
And I think that's I talked about unconscious incompetence, right? You're doing what you think, but it's just not the case today. We know this. We know this approach actually works. There's tremendous breadth and body of work to show that exactly what this child advocacy center is going to do is going to work, right? And so again, we're not just throwing money down a well. We're not just going out and saying, hey, like, if we do this, maybe this will happen. This is incredibly well researched. And so again, I mean, I'm
Proven
putting
effective.
yeah, I'm putting my money into it and my energy into it because I know it'll make a difference, not I think it'll make a
No,
difference,
I
right?
agree
So
entirely. Proven effective throughout the province. This is what we need for sure. And we need it more than anybody else in the province does in our
yeah, and
community.
this is
Yeah.
global research, right? Like the
Yes.
ACEs material that you and I have both read is not this is not just some small body of work that's been done by some group in southern Alberta, right? This is the greatest minds in science and psychology uh, collectively coming together and saying, "Hey, this is what we need to do if we're going to fix this problem." So
Yeah.
I would close with that.
Okay. That sounds great, Mike. Thank you so much for your time. I always appreciate talking with you. I think you are a wonderful human being, and I very much enjoy you.
Well, thanks, Alan. I appreciate you and appreciate what you're trying to do in our community as well. And hopefully, we can really make a big difference in helping push this child advocacy center forward. So that's my short term vision.
Well said, my friend. Keep well.
All right, Al. Take care.